Hello, I'm Pip Cleeland and I'm from Phillip Island, originally from Scotland, and I suppose I classify myself as a visual artist. Yes, my background is I originate from Scotland and I was brought up there for the last 39 years. And I was brought up on a farm and always been involved with art from a very young age. My parents sort of surreptitiously, I suppose, introduced me to art, but it was not put on a plate. We were organically involved with art from an early age. We were allowed to play around with paints, colour, invent things, make things, be creative from a very early age. So it wasn't like I went to art classes. Life was an art class in itself, I suppose. My childhood is kind of a bit like the hallmark of who I am. So all through my upbringing, um, again, I'll just repeat the thing where I just really felt that whatever I did, I was allowed to have free rein. So not being inhibited about who I am as an individual has really helped throughout my life, I guess. So childhood is a big thing. I could play, I could invent, I could make things, whether it be in the kitchen or dens outside or paint on the walls if my mother wasn't looking. We were kind of allowed to do all that stuff to a certain degree. So yes, big time. Playing is good. What subject matter inspires me the most? Nature. Okay, so we have nature and that's just all around me. That's what I live and breathe. At the moment, I'm focusing on birds because where we're living at the moment, building this house, is just like we're surrounded by wildlife. So I step out the door and I just see feathers, basically, which is amazing. So I reckon birds, and birds are so incredibly intelligent. I have a lot of integrity with birds. I like to also sometimes fantasize and think I'm a bird myself, but that's another story altogether for another time, I guess. To begin any form of painting, I always start by making lots of mistakes. So I just put marks down on a canvas. I don't spend a lot of time doing intricate little sketches. It's just not, I'm not patient enough. So if I'm doing something quite precise, because I've got different styles, if it's the precise type of style of painting, I'll start broad, really broad, and just let me play with it. And then I'll tighten up and tighten up to make it look, I suppose, real. If I'm doing abstract, again, it's just really marks on canvas and let it play itself, let it breathe, and then who knows what chance of something that comes in. Otherwise, if I'm too strict, it becomes too formulaic and I classify that as boring and not creative. I have a very broad spectrum when it comes to the word conservation. I think probably we all are conservationists, but we get sidetracked. So naturally, I think without even thinking about it, I'm in a habitat of the world. So it's respecting the world around us. So yes, I'm a conservationist in a sort of like life way. I actually have a job where I actually, it is a legitimate, I am a ranger in the daytime, so that is involving a lot of conservation and education. But to be really honest, if I didn't even have that job, I would classify myself as a world conservationist, just in the idea of trying to protect our planet and the home that we live on. I was to choose one of my animal personalities, I guess would probably be, let's just say the bird, because there's so many facets to this animal. It's clever to begin with. It can live in all sorts of environments. It's multitasking in the way it goes about its life. And I suppose if I had to be reincarnated, who wouldn't want to be a bird? Just think where you could travel to. I don't know, it just seems to me a very freed up lifestyle. So give me a set of wings and see where we'll go. Fly off somewhere. My biggest inspiration, even though, bless her, she's not here, is definitely my mother, because subconsciously she is in me, and she was probably very iconic with her art. She was not an artist, but she lived and breathed the whole ethos of expressing yourself, whether it be dressing up or being allowed to do what you naturally want to do in it, you know, when you're doing your creativity. So lucky me, I had, and lucky my brothers as well, that we all had this mother that really encouraged us. So my mother's number one, I guess. She was like a phoenix. She really just, she was like, she had the wings of expression. So thanks, Mum, wherever you are up there. Thank you for inspiring me. Covid-19, wow, it's been quite a year. I'm kind of doing pretty good with the whole thing, because my home environment is, I'm actually building a house with my wonderful husband. So it's never stopped being creative, even if I'm not putting paint to canvas or whatever. I'm creating a base of life, which really makes you feel strong, because in amongst all of the world pandemic, I have got the largest art project in mankind, I think, going on, and that is building a house, which is from organic beginnings as well. I mean, every brick, I don't know if you can see the bricks behind me or whatever, but every brick I've made stone columns, I have made a roof, I have tried to invent things like, you know, doors, what will work there and what will work in different places, from using, you know, leftover bits of wood. So not necessarily a problem for me, but definitely there's undercurrents of higher emotional levels, I think, and that's just because there is a ripple effect, which I don't think any of us can escape with the whole thing that's going on at the moment. There's not been a silver lining with COVID. I would like to say there has, but I think, to me, it's been a learning lining, if that makes sense. It's really brought an awareness to, a heightened awareness of who I am as a person. So silver linings, I don't really exist for in my world at the moment. I'm very realistic about having what I've got. I feel I'm very lucky as it is, without silver or gold linings. Yeah. New areas for me since lockdown is definitely, I've been able to spend more time at home, and the inspiration of feeling that, you know, one might have to sort of like look at different areas and facets of what we do with our life, that's for sure. Because before COVID, I was kind of on a little bit of a train of life where, you know, it becomes a bit habitual and a pattern evolves, whereas this is, you've far more get off the rails and think of things that you have to do, or not have to do, but would like to do, sorry. So it's kind of really enhanced my creativity. I have been actually quite lucky through this time, because I actually did get just recently a really great commission come through, and I was able to obviously settle into it because there was no distractions here at home in what you call isolation, I guess. I was able to get on with my commission, and it was a very big, important commission. So I'm really delighted to say that being able to stay at home and get on with my work was really great. So I managed to deliver that commission, and I have to say I couldn't have done it probably if I had my day job going on. It was really great just to hunker down, have no distractions, and yeah, was very happy to be able to get that commission done for the people that were asked me to do it. Yeah. Is I think we as members have to communicate in other ways, which is proving to be possible. I mean, it's not all about meeting in an actual physical place. I mean, we now have the Zoom meetings that go on, and it actually might bring out a more positive, better side to this, because we might make more of an effort to communicate with individuals. So I think, just being an optimist, I think we will always find a way around it if there's that energy and the feel that if you want to do something, it'll happen. But just keep communicating verbally, whether it be, we can still phone each other, we can speak to each other that way. So email, whatever. I don't think the ship's going to go down. And also, if I get this house finished in time and COVID lifts and goes away, we could always have a community centre here, because it's a pretty good place for a small amount of people to come and just gather around and maybe have, you know, art sessions, art groups, art talks, whatever. Or if we can't do it indoors, we can do it outdoors, because we've got this beautiful property with lots of area. So anything could happen. So advice I would give to someone who is wanting to be creative and express themselves and move forward in that direction is, first of all, believe in yourself, because anything can happen if you focus and believe in yourself. It really is a strong internal energy, the mind. And just do it. Be courageous. Just don't think, oh, we can't, because there's all sorts of options, and there's a lot of people out there that are absolutely dying to help out as well. A lot of really enthusiastic people that are really wanting to be part of that energy as well. So my advice is go out there and be yourself, be confident, and don't fall down at the first hurdle. Mistakes are sometimes a bit, they can distract you, but where would we be if we hadn't done mistakes? Some of the biggest inventions in life have started off as a failure, and it's working out how to get around that makes something actually rather more stronger, I guess. So go for it. Live life.
My name is Susan Hall. I'm a visual artist working in many mediums. I live in Inverloch, Victoria, on the coast in Gippsland, about 2 hours south of Melbourne, the city of Melbourne. I've been working in artwork since probably early 70s. I think they gave me opportunities. Like I excelled in drawing. I can still see a drawing that I did in grade 6, but I'd love to have that now, but it's in the back of my memory. I studied at TAFE College in Wantirna for probably three years. I did it part-time, 3 to 4 years. I did it part-time because I was bringing up these 3 boys, and I did life drawing, plenty of life drawing, general drawing, introduction to printmaking and design. I think I did design for 2 years in a row, and then I did an applied certificate in photography at the same TAFE College. Well, it obviously was, because I didn't know that at the time, but I think I had started painting by this stage too, painting in oil paints, and from 1980 I started exhibiting. I had my first exhibition in 1980, and so I was painting in oils at that time and doing a little bit of drawing, but mostly painting. Yes, it has. I actually, when I went to do my Bachelor's of Visual Arts at Monash University in Gippsland, I thought, well, that'll satisfy me. But I loved it so much. I did it part-time, but I would go to the university every day because I just loved the atmosphere. And I was a mature age student then, and I completed my Bachelor's, and then I thought, yes, I need to do my Master's. Never thought I would be able to do my Master's, but I did, and then I was introduced to an American printmaker who was visiting Monash University at the time, Melanie Yahtzee, and she's a Navajo Indian lady and exceptional printmaker, and we just connected. And since then, I've been to America. I've been invited to America 3 times, and I've exhibited my work at the Colorado University, where Melanie is head printmaker. I think they call them professors over there. And so my life has opened up since I did my Master's at a mature age. So I could thoroughly recommend it. Well, my beach walks and nature are my big inspiration. I walk the beach early in the morning, later in the evening, and I can take in the landscape or the seascape, and I can come home and it is still etched in my mind what I've seen, and I can do a painting from memory, from what I've seen. And I've done that a few times. Just walked back into my studio and thought, I've got to paint that. Well, over the years I've been very concerned about the amount of plastic that finds its way into the oceans and the effect it's having on bird life worldwide. There are gyres full of plastic islands in the northern Pacific, and there's 5 of them altogether, and they're just masses of plastic that is washed around in the ocean, and having devastating effects on bird life. So with the work that I like to do, I collect as much plastic as I can find on the beach. I usually take a bag with me, and I normally used to fill up a complete bag of plastic. This particular piece of plastic I dug up out of the sand, down near the bluff, and it's been bitten by crabs. It's quite a heavy plastic, and it's got all these crab bites all the way through it. So I utilise this in my work as a basis for my printmaking. So that's part of my process. And also I used to fossick through all the seaweed at the high tide line, and I would come across microplastics which find their way into birds' stomachs. And so I collected lots and lots of tiny little pieces of plastic, because it doesn't really dissolve at all. It's always like a large bit of plastic. It will reduce down to, but it never completely goes away. So it's plastic has joined our food chain, and the birds that sort of suffer with their stomachs full of plastic, they eventually die, and it poisons them. Yes, well, luckily I don't find as much plastic on the beach now as I did 5 years ago. So something is happening. I can walk the beach now and maybe find one small piece of plastic, a plastic bag or a bait bag, but nothing like the full bags, a full bag that I used to find, especially foam too. Foam's not good for bird life. So yeah, so luckily I think things are beginning to change. People are realising that plastic is harmful, and as I said before, it's in our food chain. The fish eat it, the fish die, the fish change their sex. It's very damaging, and it's been scientifically proved that it can be devastating for animals and in turn humans. I think the message is getting out there: pick up after you, especially plastics, because they're here forever. So look after our environment. I find that I can incorporate quite a few different things in my artwork. As I said, I did pottery and hand building of objects in my early days, and then I played with fabric, textiles, and I find even now with printmaking, if I have a print that hasn't worked, well then it can be cut up, and you know, I can collage it, or I can add fabric. Yes, I've been to America. I've been invited to America a couple of times. The third time, which was before COVID, I was invited to have a residency at the Colorado University in March and attend and speak at a conference called Embracing the Wilds. And of course, a week before I was due to fly out, COVID arrived and squashed all the plans, and we know how that's affected everybody now. Well, when we first had the first lockdown, I thought, oh good, I can just be in my studio all day and every day. I won't have to go out. And I did quite a lot of painting, large ones and small ones. And then, you know, I reached a stage where just this latest lockdown, you think, what's the point? You know, you do get a bit flat, and but sometimes you just have to rise to the top of that and get over it and think, well, you know, I'm lucky to have a studio to be able to work in. So during this, I've done enough painting, I think, for the moment. And so I was looking at, I've got some new acrylics, and I was looking at playing with colour. And so I've just done some works on paper, which I probably wouldn't have done if I hadn't have been in lockdown. Oh yes, I think, yes, it has taken a little time to stay on top of everything. You can let yourself be pulled down, but luckily I can I can get on top of that. But no, I have had down feelings during COVID. I did sell a painting from Art Space just in the first lockdown. People had seen it about Christmas time and they wanted to know where this painting was, and so that was probably the only bit of joy. And hopefully our galleries are beginning to open now. Menion Gallery's opened and Art Space will be open next week. And so what the future holds, who knows? I think I think the art world will take a bit of recovering like everything else. I think it's something we just have to work on and not be too despondent, but just get on and do it. That's the way I look at it anyway.
Yeah.
Yes, well, not being able to predict what's going to happen in the future, I think we as artists, we must keep on doing our work, because even if no one sees it, it's very important to us as artists to still keep creating and to hopefully get the younger people in schools and secondary schools to have that interest, because I think if you've got an interest in artwork, you've got a lot more than a lot of people have.
My name is Susan Brereton. I'm an artist and photographer from Cowes, Victoria. We used to go rock hunting. My father did gemstones and he made jewellery out of them. And we used to take our drawing books with us. And my mother, my two sisters, we all sat down and drew the landscape. I started drawing when I was about 5. When I was in my early teens, I entered the local show a few times, won a few first prizes, and it encouraged me, and I would love to have done artwork all my life. First camera with my first pay back in 1976.
Right.
And I've always been interested in photography as well. So I never did much concerning it, only taking holiday snaps and things like that. It wasn't until about 10 years ago that I got more into photography. The people that influenced me the most would be my sisters in their photography. I've really enjoyed watching them and tried to use them as an influence. Also the photography, the Kegels from Cumbernauld. They did a presentation at the Camera Club on their trip to Venice, and one of their photographs Whenever I think of it, and even when I saw it, it was of a bakery window, and they were cooking bread in the early morning, and I could swear you could smell that bread cooking. It really emphasised what you can do with a photograph. You can actually, put that sense into a photograph.
Yeah.
I do look at the internet to see what other people have done, what way they have attacked that picture to give me inspiration, probably, an idea of that I could do it, and just as a reference point, really. Magazines, I like the variation of types of paintings they have, from abstract to whatever, and with I'm into horses and that sort of thing. I like. I will always go towards drawing.
Drawing.
Yes, at the moment I'm doing pen and ink. I'll always go towards black and white before colour. I've always had that tendency to do that. I'm at the moment doing a series of pen and ink drawings, which I'm going to include wash as well and see how that goes. Well, I've always been Leonardo da Vinci. He was always been one of my favourite artists from when I was little. Rembrandt, I like the Rembrandt lighting for portraits. Australian ones would be Streeton and McCubbin, and their landscapes and portraits. Now, more modern one, Ross Patterson, Australian painter. He lived in Shepparton, which I knew.
Local boy.
Yes. And recently, it would have to be John Adam, because of his what he's taught me, and Diana Bannister. She always encourages me, gives me inspiration, enjoy their company, which is one of the best ways of doing good paintings, I think. Well, actually, I've had more time to actually do artwork. I paint better, I draw better when I'm calm, and there's been less people around on the island because of the virus, and I have been really calm. Work has been quiet at most times, and I've been more relaxed, and it has flowed better during this period. Well, we had our biannual exhibition due this year, which of course has been cancelled. Our club meetings have been cancelled. We managed to get 3 or 4 excursions in before the last lot of cancellations of events. So we've managed to get a few things. We continued our monthly evaluations over the internet, and we were able to send them to judges. By doing that, we have monthly challenges, which we also do, and that, of course, it was over the internet as well. So we've continued to do stuff, but not person to person. No, I'm not that adventurous.
I thought you were soon.
No, I've tried abstract. I thought, because that's one of part I probably picked up during my photography, to see, you know, perhaps I could paint some of those abstracts that I take, but I haven't found the knack of actually painting abstracts. They never quite come out the same as the photograph. Well, it stopped us from showing artwork or photography. I have sold some on the internet, so that has brought in a different area of selling or showing their work. Well, the first thing is decide what you want to do.
What would you suggest?
Get out there and do it. Don't think about it, because it will never happen. First thing you've got to do, if you're an artist, get a pencil or paintbrush in your hand and just doodle. Practice, practice, practice. Do something every day. Pick up a pencil, draw every day, or paint something, even if it's a quick sketch, to get into the rhythm of doing it. And same with photography. Take the camera with you. If you go for a walk, have it with you. Have your phone with you, wherever you go. I, in my car, have a drawing book, pencils with me at all times. My camera, if I'm going anywhere, is always in the car as well. And I've always got my phone, so it is a daily thing you have to do. If you're interested, do it.
To the same spot?
The South Coast Road, I find it calming, inspiring, powerful. There is so much force in that in the water, it just makes you realise how free it is. The coastline, you can see the patterns in the cliffs and the colour and the foliage against the dark rocks and the bright colours, the random patterns in the grass as the wind blows through them and the formation of them. It is so inspiring to see the birds, and since the COVID isolation, there has been an increase in the number of falcons and kites and the different birds, except for seagulls. There are no seagulls out that area, and the wildlife, they're more free. The wallabies and the geese and the rabbits, you can see them on a constant time when you feeding time. It's just like a bit of freedom in amongst the rush and the pressure and the running around in town. You just go out to that spot and you let the wind blow the cobwebs out, and it's so calming, and it's so good to get ideas for painting, photography. It's good for your soul.
Hi, my name's Steve Parker. I'm a descendant of the Brereton, Yorta Yorta and Arab people, and I'm a local Indigenous artist that lives in Surf Beach, Phillip Island, or known as Malau in my language, of the Brereton language. 43 years old, I have one son, 16 years old, and yeah, we live here on Phillip Island. I've been down here about 20 years or more and lived in the local area most of my life. I was brought up in a place called Bullen near Warrigal. I grew up there with my adoptive family who adopted me out, or picked me up when I was about 6 months old. And yeah, I've grown up there, and as I was growing up there, I was always looking to find my real parents, and at the age of 10 or 11 I ended up meeting my real mum and my Indigenous heritage. And then from there on it's just been non-stop, a major journey of finding out who I am, and along the ways expressing my journey and my connection to this country. Yeah, John Parker was my dad. Yeah, he maybe passed away 4 or 5 years ago, but he had a major impact through my life, bringing me up, and he was a CFMEU organiser with the unions, and a human rights activist as well. So through growing up with him and him as a mentor, he taught me some pretty good values, especially for human rights, and especially our First Nations people in Australia. Yeah, I was as a young kid, I suppose, I was always drawing, and then as I got into my teens, I started doing a bit of graffiti. I didn't go the illegal side, I went the legal side, which you can go either way. And I was just lucky enough to find work in that area on the legal side of things, and probably to the age of 19, 20, I was getting more in touch with my traditional connection and my roots, and that's where I started painting a lot of my stories, my journey. So my art's kind of traditional contemporary, that's what I call it. So it's a traditional type of art with a modern day twist of contemporary, with different like brighter colours and more futuristic colours. Yeah, I'm by trade. I'm actually a carpenter and joiner. I'm a man of many many different trades, but I still do a little bit here and there with my trade, but trying to step away from it as my dad was a builder, my brother was a builder, and seeing them, I kind of don't want to grow old too young, so I try to step away from the building. My brother also stepped away from it. He's now he's got his PhD and he's a professor in stem cell research in Queensland in Brisbane Uni. And then my dad always stayed in the trade, but more the union side of things. But yeah, as much as to this day I try and step away from it. I try and concentrate on my art. I've got a small cultural business that I do art, design, concepts. I do cultural education. I also, through my company, my cultural company, I'm also a traditional owner in the area, so I do a lot of work with a traditional owner group in this area. But my work that I actually am employed for, I do two days a week at the Cranbourne Botanical Gardens as an Indigenous facilitator, educator there, which is an amazing place at the Cranbourne Botanical Gardens, as it's an all-Australian native plants. And then my other role is I'm a Aboriginal support worker at Wangalu Nalu down in Yarram for our, which is a Indigenous men's healing place for Indigenous men that are doing community service or trying to step into the I suppose the natural world after being incarcerated for some time, and we help them over 3 months make those different changes and to step out into the real world, and yeah. Yeah, I suppose after my building career, as I try to step away from it, I'm a really keen surfer and skateboarder, snowboarder, love motorbike riding, just love doing all the fun stuff. And I suppose one of my good mates from Sandy Point pushed me into encouraged me to do my surf coaching course, and got my level 1 course, and then ended up working for Surfing Victoria for 15 years, running a statewide Indigenous aquatics program. So after probably the first 7 years of running that part-time, which incorporated catchment programs with all our communities right across the coastline, also our inland communities, and then sort of at that ran into a Victorian statewide titles that we used to run. And then after 7 or 8 years part-time, the government backed me as I was getting participation-wise with our communities. It was running second best to AFL programs in our state. So the government kind of threw quite a bit of money at the program and ended up having a full-time role out of it. And then worked in that full-time role that was funded by the Emergency Services, Vic Health as well. And I ended up in that full-time role for about 6 or 7 years, and then ended that maybe 4 years ago. But through that, I was able to, through the program, we had the strongest program within Indigenous communities right around Australia, and part of my role working for Surfing Victoria was also the site manager for the Rip Curl Pro. So through that we'll right in the surf industry, and I was able to connect with all our other mob right around the country through quite a few of the professional surfers that were from Australia, sending messages to them, to the local crew in their local areas interstate, and got the message across, and we ended up reincarnating the Australian Indigenous titles that runs at Bells usually in May each year. So we reincarnated that in 2012 after 16 years of being absent, and from that it's relit the fire with all our communities within Australia to get their surfing programs up and going. And yeah, and the beneficial part of that is getting our mobs into coaching positions and giving them their first step of employment. But I incorporated our cultural protocols on passing that knowledge down through my programs. So we would nurture heroes within communities, get them into coaching roles, and then we'd get them to deliver programs to their own community and help them get that strength. So it was just turning over those that program, so it kept it sustainable, and it's still sustainable to this day. So. Yeah, with a lot of my art, I use different paints. I use water-based acrylics, sometimes oil-based, and I kind of mix them all together. I also use ochre from our land down here. I crush up and put into a lot of the painting, so it gives that local connection. And then, yeah, I suppose looking at some of my art, it's looking from my creator's eyes, which is Bunjil, who travels as a wedge-tailed eagle. He's always watching upon us and on our country. So when I'm painting my stories, it's usually from the creator's eyes, looking down and painting the journeys and our country. Yeah, those other little things are, I suppose, as you become an artist, your name starts getting out there. You start selling a lot more, and then to me, it was about trying to create some sort of income that was coming in to help that. So it was, instead of doing a custom piece for every bit of artwork, it was just I had a couple opportunities to get my art piece on Head Socks, which is a company that sells head socks right around Australia and the world. And yeah, the guy that runs that chose me with a lot of, I felt pretty honoured, as a lot of the other artists, Indigenous artists that he's got on board are spread right around our country. I'm probably the youngest one on board. But yeah, it was just about getting it out there and getting my art, but something to bring a bit of income coming in between paintings and so on. Logos and stuff like that, I've always loved doing logos just from the graffiti background. But also tattoos. A lot of community members, Indigenous community members, were asking to get some sort of tattoo designs, and I suppose over the years I've ended up doing quite a few for some of our mobs. So yeah, it's quite honoured to have a patch of mine carrying around on a human being getting around. So yeah, it's kind of good. Yeah, COVID, I suppose the COVID issues affected me right at the very beginning of first lockdown, as my cultural company was going into cultural tours and different stuff like that, education. It was starting to pick up quite a bit, and then with the restrictions, it really, I lost a lot of work through that. But it was kind of a bit of a, for me it was a blessing in disguise, because I actually picked up some design concept work through some connections that I have in Melbourne with the railway upgrades and the park upgrades. So sitting on a couple of those different projects in Melbourne as a traditional owner from the Bindwadung. I do have a design concept going in at one of the stations on the, it's on the coast there, around the bay there. No, on this side, around Morty Alec and around that way. I've just gone Cheltenham Station, sorry. Cheltenham Station, there's a big design concept that's going in there in the welcome mat. As they walk out of the train station, in the pavement on the ground, there's a big design concept going in there of our Bindwadung mapping and 6 shields of our clans that used to share our land. So I was pretty happy with that, and then I may have some other design concepts going into some other line upgrades as well. Fingers crossed. Yeah, I suppose with my role as a traditional owner in this area, and I do a bit of mentoring with a few of our Indigenous kids in the local area, mainly at Wonthaggi Secondary College, which I really love. Just sharing culture, getting them stronger within their identity and their connections, and just helping them through their, I suppose, their journey through school, and try and give them support as well through these trying times that can be for some of our younger generation. So. Yeah, I suppose the first lockdown was kind of, you were able to plan for it. Yeah, I planned to do a heap of different stuff. I think within the house and projects that you you sort of put on the back burner for quite a while, and I suppose I got them done within the first couple of weeks, and then you're kind of finding other things to do, and then coming into the second one was a little bit harder, but yeah, a little bit with the mental health, not being able to see a lot of friends that were in the city, and really felt for people that were in that stage 4 area, but thought we were quite blessed being here on the island, being able to still go to the beach and surf and sort of do a lot of the things that we were already doing, but just being mindful of just putting masks on and making sure everything's clean and different things like that. So. Yeah, I suppose my mob, there's a few different mobs to that. So with our community, when you call mob, that's a connection and the people that you're from. So the Boonwurrung people and the Yorta Yorta and the Arab people from TI, that's who my mob are. But I suppose my close-knit friends, my other mob, and community that I'm in, are really close, and really love sharing my culture, and to non-Indigenous people, and something that I always believe is, or something that I always want to see, is with all Australians taking on our culture and taking ownership of our beautiful culture that's been in the oldest, richest culture in the world. And once everybody embraces that within our country, I think we can start moving forward with a lot of things. Something that I'd love to see is a celebration dance, like the Maoris have the Maoris, but all New Zealanders do their haka. I'd love to see that future in our schools, where every one of our kids that goes through school is educated on our First Nations people, and feel very proud of the culture that comes from this country, Australia. And that'd be one thing I'd love to see, is that passed down through the generations, not just Indigenous but all Australians. But yeah, and also the local community here on Malau or Phillip Island is amazing, or just within Bass Coast. Bass Coast right down to south of Gippsland. It's beautiful country, and the people are amazing. So, yeah.
Thanks Steve for sharing today.
No worries. Thank you very much, and we'll see you all later.